Hello, hello. Today's horror story is written by Lady Spookaria and I.
Despite the spins, I had my feet up on the dash. I tried to pick favorite raindrops as they grew, merged and raced their siblings to the window's bottom. It was hard to focus on anything. The car engine, the windshield wipers, Jeremy ringing the steering wheel, all vied for my attention.
We didn't have to leave,
He said. I curled up as much as the seatbelt would allow. No, it's fine. You hate my friends, so let's just go home.
I don't hate them, Sophie. I barely had time to talk to anyone. You took up most of the air in there.
I actually bristled at that. It's the start of my weekend and I was letting off steam with my friends. It just sucks so much being stuck in the apartment all day, I complained.
Oh, I know. You mentioned that like a billion times.
Jeremy said as he tightened his grip on the wheel. An awkward silence hung like a dagger above our heads. I pressed down on the hilt. Is that it? I asked knowingly. The car sped up. Nothing else bothering you, Jer-Bear?
Why should anything be bothering me? The only person I know for a million miles is miserable, and it's all my fault, apparently.
It's not just you. There's a lot going on. I probably had one too many, I said.
Yeah, well, drunk hearts speak the truth.
We kept speeding up. The road ahead blurred as raindrops outpaced the wiper blades. We're going too fast, I yelled at him.
You know what? Sometimes I think we are.
He bellowed at me. And then the car started to slip. A wrongness in our momentum made my stomach lurch. The windshield shifted to the right. A tree, illuminated by the very edge of our headlights, growing inexorably larger in my window. And then, nothing.
The ambulance, the hospital, the trip home are all a blur. The only crisp memory I have is of Sophie. I must have crawled clear of the wreckage because I was just standing there, facing the passenger side of the car. Flashing lights grew brighter, reflected in the slick pavement and shards of glass. Only her legs hung out of the mangled mess of metal. I could picture her snapped at the waist and crumpled up in the car seat. They said she might have survived if she'd been sitting properly. Given the sickening way her legs bent halfway down her thighs, I couldn't imagine. My next clear memory was back at the apartment. No matter how many condolences or how vast your support system is, nothing can insulate you from that first time you're alone. Sophie's family was grieving in their own way, and mine was non-existent. I was very much alone. I suppose I only had myself to blame. Nothing tied me to my old life, and thought I'd really make a go of it with my girlfriend overseas. I found myself moving to Townsville, Queensland, the city of Townsville. I thought it'd be worth it for the memes alone. I proposed to Sophie and made plans to move on the same day. My socials were inundated with an increasing amount of unread notifications. Notifications which seemed both too many and too few. Sophie was the only thing going right in my life. Sure, we'd been feeling the pressure, but who wasn't? Everyone gets those pre-wedding jitters. But of course we loved each other. And now our last conversation, filled with resentment and frustration, was now permanently carved on the side of some tree out in the country. I lay in the dark, tears welling up whenever the slightest thought of her touched my mind. Someone slipped into bed beside me. Sophie's voice pervaded my fevered thoughts, but amongst the turmoil I heard an audible,
"You need to move on."
just before I drifted off. Moving boxes all but materialized around the apartment. I didn't totally feel ready, but in my dreams I was certain Sophie wanted me to get on with my life. It was crazy. I was almost certainly coping poorly by pretending my dead fiancé was communicating with me. But for the first time since the accident, I felt happy. I could hear her voice on the wind from the open window. Sometimes I could hear her voice crackle through a podcast I was listening to. Always.
"You need to move on."
Pictures would fall off shelves and I'd pack them up in a hurry, taking it as a sign she wanted me to keep them. All kinds of small objects would clatter to the floor, and I felt warm inside, picturing Sophie helping me as she could. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but at least everything would be ready once I figured it out. It was what Sophie wanted. I was cleaning out Sophie's nightstand when I found the diary. If I wasn't certain I was still communicating with my departed fiancé, that book would have been my last opportunity to hear her words. Briefly grappling with whether to invade her privacy, I opened the last written page. My heart sank.
I don't know how to tell Jeremy this. I'm just not in love with him anymore.
I couldn't believe what I was reading. I kept going.
I miss my life before him. I miss when I was free to do what I wanted, and when he wasn't around me. I loathe the person I've become because of him. I hate how he complains and does nothing. He is nothing but a weak fucking coward who is good for nothing. I hate his voice, his touch, his breath. His existence sickens me.
If I didn't recognize her handwriting, I would be sure this was someone else.
If he dies, it would do the world a favor. Even then, his useless ass would leave me with the funeral.
She wasn't just done with me, she was angry at me, at the world, at the life we had been building together. The atmosphere of the apartment changed. Well, maybe it didn't. Perhaps only my perception of it had changed. Items seemed to be thrown off shelves rather than merely nudged to get my attention. I recognized the tone in the ethereal voice invading my earbuds. It was aggression. My world spun. The only tether to my life had been severed for a second time. The largest knife whipped out of the knife block, sliding across the kitchen island I braced myself on. The knife came to a rest in front of me. Beside my dull reflection in the blade, I could make out a second silhouette behind my shoulder. I ripped my earbuds out and tossed them across the room. Amid the storm of guilt and regret, Sophie's whispers persisted, no longer hindered by the extraneous noise. As I stared at our reflections in the night, the same message she had been repeating since her death rang clear.
You need to move on.